Good Sunday morning, Northeast Ohio, as we wrap up another week that saw President Trump pay a visit to the Buckeye State. The president touring a tank plant in Lima. It's the first stop in Ohio since production ended at the Lordstown GM plant 2 weeks to the day earlier. Mr. Trump, as he did in tweets last weekend, calling on GM to either play or punt.
Sell it to somebody or open it yourselves. Get it going now, and the UAW will help you. They said they have discussions coming up in September, October. I said, why not tomorrow? Why not on Monday? What do you have to wait months for?
With the president on Wednesday was the Secretary of the Army, who then met with Cleveland city officials on Thursday. I had a chance to talk to him about the president's plan to take money from defense construction projects, possibly as many as 5 in Ohio, to help pay for his border wall. The list of projects that could be impacted is lengthy, 21 pages in all, and includes potentially $7.4 million secured last year for a new machine gun range at Portage County's Camp Ravenna. Army Secretary Mark Esper is putting his trust, he tells me at this point, in Congress.
Well, we'll see. Nothing's been taken yet. This will all play out in time. We know we have a national emergency declaration, and so we're going to fully support the Commander-in-Chief. But I'm confident that if Congress passes our FY20 budget, which is on the Hill right now, that the Army will be fine in terms of readiness and modernization.
One spot that has seen increased funding is the Abrams tank program. The Lima, Ohio plant the president visited on Wednesday, where the tank is made, is the last of its kind in the nation, but was nearly shut down altogether 6 years ago. Tank production here has increased from 1 tank a month to a reported 11. Given the unconventional warfare, though, that the Army has faced in Iraq and Afghanistan, is there still a need for traditional tanks?
It's a great question, and the short answer is yes.
He says despite the last 17 years of battling the Taliban and ISIS, the feeling at the Pentagon is that the big countries still pose the biggest risk. That's why the tanks are still needed.
We really need to focus on the strategic threats, those being competitors such as Russia and China. And while we will still maintain that competency in irregular warfare, which has marked our conflicts in Afghanistan and Iraq, we have to be ready for the big fight.
We are waiting for the decision in a big fight that played out in a federal courthouse in Cincinnati. The question at hand is whether or not Ohio's congressional districts were illegally gerrymandered and whether the court will make those districts be redrawn in time for the primary next March. Looking at Ohio's congressional districts at times is like looking at ink blots. Marcy Kaptur's lake-hugging 9th district seat, reminiscent of an oceanside par 5 of a British links course, and directly to her south is Congressman Jim Jordan's 4th.
The Duck District, we're calling it now, right?
Yes, the Duck District, because, well, it looks like a duck, in case you didn't see it. These are the districts that the plaintiffs in a federal lawsuit argued in court were drawn by Republicans to benefit Republicans, citing last November's elections, where the GOP got 52% of the state's vote, but continued to hold 75% of the state's congressional seats. Boundaries that with technology are easy to draw.
This map that we're currently under was drawn using computer technology where you can go down precinct by precinct, look at the voting patterns, the majorities that voted for Republican candidates, put them together in these districts, and then do the same thing to pack in those that were voting for Democrats.
They're asking the court to okay the redrawing of Ohio's congressional district boundaries, maybe something like this, in time for next year's primary. In the past, this might have seemed far-fetched, but a state court forced Pennsylvania to redraw their lines last year, and the U.S. Supreme Court let it stand.
So there's been a movement in legal circles towards courts getting involved in these cases, where before they tended to shy away from these unless there was explicitly an issue of race involved.
One of the challenges in Ohio, even if the court agrees, is the state may lose another congressional seat after the 2020 census.
Which then means you're essentially going to have people who voted in one district in 2018 might vote in another district in 2020 and might actually vote in a third district in 2022.
Well, right now there are active gerrymandering cases being decided in 12 states and the Supreme Court. Speaking of the Supreme Court, it was their decision in a New Jersey case last May that opened the door for legalized sports betting outside of the state of Nevada. That's important to note this weekend because it's the first full weekend of March Madness, a tournament in which the American Gaming Association estimates that $8.5 billion will be wagered. Now, right now, Ohio is not one of the states in green on this map where sports betting is legal, but we are one of the states in blue where there's legislation in the works, and we now know what that legislation looks like. Under the proposal, the state's 4 casinos and 7 racinos would be allowed to open sports books after paying the $100,000 application fee to the state. In addition, bettors over the age of 21 could place bets anywhere in Ohio on their phones through authorized apps. The key in all this is the tax the state will collect. The bill calls for it to be 6.25% of the casino's win after all bets are paid, which would make it the most casino-friendly tax in the country. That's because the money a casino makes on sports betting is actually small. Consider this. In traditional gambling, odds favor the house. Sports betting, in simple terms, is different. In most cases, you have a choice of two teams, and if the odds favor one over the other, you'll take the other. So say you have $100 you're going to wager. If you're playing slots in Ohio, the casino ends up keeping about $8 of that. If you're playing table games, the average casino take this year on that $100 is $23. In sports betting last year in Las Vegas, the casino's take on that C-note, only $5. So using Ohio's 33% tax as an example, the tax on your $100 in gambling would be $2.64 for the slots, $7.59 for the table games, and for sports betting, $1.65. But when you cut that tax to 6.25%, the state's tax on that $100 wager is 31 cents. So don't look for the legislature to move fast on this, but as Governor DeWine told us in November, there will be movement.
It's coming to Ohio whether people want it or not.
Now, in presenting his budget last week, the governor did not include funds from sports betting in it, but said afterwards that he expects sports betting to become a reality sometime within the life of that 2-year budget. With Democracy 2019, I'm John Kosich. Enjoy your Sunday.